Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of the Articulate Fly, and we're here with a bonus on the beat session. And I'm joined by my co-host Tucker Horne, manager of the US Youth Fly Fishing Team. How's it going, Tucker?
Hey, I'm doing well, Marvin. I am stoked to be doing this show with you, and I couldn't be more excited to share some great information, news, and interviews with people that are active in the competitive fly fishing scene.
Yeah, folks, so to kind of pull back the curtain, Tucker and I have been talking about this for a while, and what we want to do is to bring a regular show that provides news and interviews just to the competitive fly fishing community. So this is our first experiment. We hope you like it. Please give us some feedback. You can hit us up on our social media outlets. You can leave us a message at thearticulatefly.com. As a matter of fact, Tucker, we may even be putting up a poll to ask people if we should keep it or kill it.
I think we're going to be putting up a poll because I love social media. So follow along on facebook.com/thearticulatefly. Follow us on Instagram at thearticulatefly and check out what we're doing on social media. Subscribe to the podcast, and we're in for a fun ride here, and we hope you'll join us.
Absolutely. And before we get the party going, I want to give a shout out to this inaugural episode sponsor, the Virginia Fly Fishing and Wine Festival. The event's going to be in its 20th year. It's put on by event promoter Bo Beasley, and it will be held January 11th and 12th in Doswell, Virginia. If you go to the Articulate Fly website and go to the event page, you can get all the details. Tucker, you ready to rock us with the news?
Let's rock and roll. Here's the current on the beat fly fishing news. On May 17th, 2019, VIII Smoosh banned the squirmy worm. It was an anticipated change by many on the international competition circuit. Here's Kalvin Koloz, head coach of the U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team, an international supervisor for VIII Smoosh, and member of the U.S. Fly Fishing Team Advisory Board. VIII Smoosh came down with the squirmy wormy ruling, and obviously that is something that will affect the youth team and other international competitors. What's your take on that?
Mine, one is an angler myself, two is the coach of the youth team, as well as, I'm on the board, the advisory board for the adult team. I think it's going to affect every competitor equally. I guess that's from a coaching standpoint. I think it was one of the first, U.S. flies when we think of all the European magazines that we read and things that we research. Everything tended to come from, the UK for lake fishing or loch fishing. And then, a lot of the patterns all come from Eastern Europe because that's where this has been going on for 30 years. We're fairly infantile in that. So for us, if I want to go back and storytell, I think it was Poland, if I'm not mistaken, the youth team. Paul Bork was the coach. And I want to say the youth obviously did very well. It was rivers out there as well, pretty big water, water that we like. And I want to say we put all five in the top seven. Obviously, we won team gold. And, again, hopefully I'm not mistaken on any of those details. But so I think that's what put it on the map. And then countries, just like when we learn something new over there, then we're trying to research it and find it, But by now, 5-6 years removed, every country's got them. Every country's got their variations of them. Countries were using pool caps, red pool caps, and stamping out Mr. Twister tails to add even that were probably better or more effective than our squirmies. And the Mr. Twister tail end was ruled out, I believe it was 2 years ago. And then the squirmy as a whole was ruled out this year at the International Congress that was held.
Do you think the squirmy is a real fly?
Absolutely. I define a fly as, anything that we use thread and other materials tied onto a hook. The question I would pose to any of the anglers out there, comp anglers, the definition of what's a fly. I don't know that a squirmy is any more junky. If you talk to comp anglers, it kind of goes into what we call the junk box. So our mops are in there, our eggs are in there, our squirms are in there, or used to be in there. I don't know that it's any junkier than a blob or a booby. As a matter of fact, blobs and boobies are outlawed on a lot of the UK fisheries, Scotland and Ireland fisheries, because of the way that they inhale it, and a lot of fish kill from it. So they've not, it's not denied in competitions as far as FIPS goes, but it's denied on a lot of the local fisheries in England. So I don't know if it's any junkier than any of the other flies that I named, but I do, it's what it is. And now we just adjust, when it was the line that came down, the leader rule, and your leader can only be 2 times the rod length. Guys went to get longer rods. Now there's, 10.5, 11-footer rods. At first everybody was just fishing pure mono because, what defines a leader, what defines a line. Phipps came up with a line, and before that ruling, you were hard pressed to find a 2-2 fly line anywhere. Now just about every major rod manufacturer, to include Airflow, Rio, Hannock, everybody's making Cortland, everybody's making a 2-2 fly line for competition.
Do you think the mop fly could be the next thing that's outlawed?
As far as the mop fly, I do not think will go, simply because when you look at rulings, and I'm on as a FIPS International supervisor myself, you have to look at rulings from a standpoint of, how do you make sure that everybody is upholding the rule, and it's just chenille. So it's whether it's cut off of a something you clean your car with, or now they make rugs out of it at Walmart and Amazon for bath rugs. I don't see them outlawing chenille or egg material or blob fritz anytime soon. What they were easily able to do is go with diameter of rubber, which is how they finally outlawed the squirmy in that sense, is that it was the diameter of rubber. So you could still use rubber. You could still use a thin rubber or tubing to kind of create something. As far as a squirmy goes, or bloodworms or midgeworms go, but I don't think it'll be anywhere near as effective as the squirmy was.
Officially, the new rule reads as follows. Article 29.10 says, appendages that alter the original concept of an artificial fly, or bodies made of molded shaped plastic, molded shaped silicone, or molded shaped rubber are banned from competition. Rubber or extruded round material exceeding the bend, shank, or eye of the hook is not allowed, with the exception of rubber material less than 0.53 millimeters used for leg imitations. We're told things like stonefly legs are fine because they are thinner than 0.53 millimeters. Do you have an opinion on whether or not the squirmy should have been banned? Check out the poll on our Facebook page at facebook.com/thearticulatefly. Now for our leaderboard update. Team Nymphmaster is at the top of the Southeast Fly Fishing League leaderboard, followed by Team Deadrift and Team Stonefly. The top 10 individuals are as follows. 1. Gabe Witosh. 2. Forrest Johnston. 3. Hunter Wright. 4. Jonathan Jordan. 5. Roger Wilson. 6. Sean Isaacs. 7. Michael Yelton. 8. Jacob Brewster. 9. Michael Bradley, our show guest. And 10. Mark Adams. The National Fly Fishing League is currently led by Team Confluence, followed by Team Freestone and Team Trutta. The top 10 individual anglers are Ben True, Pat Weiss, Nick Malloy, Dan Collins, Mike Kamara, Ken Crane, Sean Crocker, Nick Bell, Calvin Bush, and Andy Leakey. The Southeast Fly Fishing League and Team Deadrift are hosting the Helen Classic on the Chattahoochee River on 6/29 and 6/30. More details can be found on flycomps.com. This is a 4-session event that will be competitor-controlled. The National Fly Fishing League will be hosting the 9 Mile Creek Mini Comp in Marcellus Falls, New York. The event is on Sunday, June 30th, and will be 2 2-hour-long competitor-controlled sessions. More information is on flycomps.com. 17 anglers have registered, and there's 18 available spots. The event doesn't have a wait list, and it could host another angler. 2 U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team members, Matthew Molfino and Ben Brocious, are hosting a regional in Vail, Colorado on July 27th and July 28th on Gore Creek. It will be 4 2-hour-long competitor-controlled river sessions. There are more details on flycomps.com. All of those events and more can be found on the events section on our website. The U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team is preparing for their trip to the World Championship in the Czech Republic. Head coach Kalvin Koloz just publicly named the anglers that will be representing the United States in VIII Brod, Czech Republic. The team will be represented by Mike Kamara, Ben Comfort, Chase Kreider, Eli Buchanan, Joey Patty, and Martin Dietz. Good luck to the U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team. Fly Fishing Team USA and the U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team, along with several other regional teams, will be participating in the North American Loch-Style Championship this coming September in British Columbia. The event is hosted by Todd Oishi. More details can be found at flyfishingchampionship.com. Don't forget, all of these events and more are on the events section on our website. The U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team just hosted the second Real Girls Clinic in State College, Pennsylvania. The clinic was geared towards girls wanting to learn more about competitive fly fishing. Several fantastic female instructors were on hand to help the girls catch more fish. The event was a partnership between TakeMeFishing.org and the U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team. A majority of the event was organized by U.S. Youth Fly Fishing Team Board Secretary Deb Ridgway. Let's get to our interview with a man that needs no introduction to competitors in the United States. He's from Cherokee, North Carolina, and he represented the United States at last year's World Championship in Italy. He will once again represent the United States at the World Championship this year in Tasmania. Welcome, Michael Bradley of Cherokee, North Carolina, and FlyFishCherokeeNC.com. Michael, it's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be here. I'm excited.
Well, it's great. I'm glad you're with us this evening, Michael, and I want to keep the articulate fly tradition going, and I always ask all of my guests to share their earliest fishing memory.
I was pretty young, 3 or 4 years old. I started with just a stick on the bank and some 4-pound tests catching creek chubs. And that's the earliest I can remember of me doing any kind of fishing.
That's
here in the middle of Cherokee.
That's really cool. When did you start fly fishing?
So in middle school, I broke my leg and I couldn't really play sports. So I tried fly fishing and it didn't stick long for some reason. I just couldn't, I didn't really have a teacher for that. I caught a few fish here and there on dry flies and some weird stuff that I tried tying when I was a kid. And that lasted just one summer. And then I picked up golf and I stuck with that for, I think, up to 2013. No, 2011 or 12. Whenever they had the first national championship here in Cherokee.
That was 2011, believe it or not.
Is that when that was?
Yeah, that was when it was.
Okay. Well, that it was shortly after I went and bought a Sage Vantage, and that's kind of when I got hooked.
And so as you kind of took the journey to what we like to call in the articulate fly, the dark side to fly fishing, who were some of your mentors?
I didn't really have any, like right off the bat. But I guess within the first year and a half or so, I had met Gordon and Matt Beam, and those were about the only two that I really met here in Cherokee. Matt worked at the fly shop, so they kind of gave me a few pointers along the way to keep me interested. I would say those two were my first mentors.
When you really started getting better and learning a lot more, who from the competition circuit took you under their wing and tried to show you some more tricks of the trade?
So I did most of my fishing with Joey Walraven. Me and him, we would go out and we would swap on, like if we were fishing the upper Nantahala, we would fish a run and we would just go back and forth. We would have our own little kind of mini tournaments, or take 5 casts. If you don't catch a fish, you swap out, stuff like that. But him and Paul Bork, Paul was more verbal for it. He had some time, but he was just getting into the film industry and didn't have a lot of time to fish, so he was more verbal about it. And I learned a lot from that too.
And so to kind of back up just a little bit, how did you get the competitive fly fishing bug? So you started fly fishing. What made you decide that you wanted to be a competitive angler?
Somebody just asked me if I wanted to fish an old trout legend tournament that was hosted here in Cherokee. I was like, sure, I'll sign up. So I signed up for it, tried it. And that was about a year in. I think it was exactly 1 year. And I didn't do too well, but I learned a ton. And that's where I was introduced to the Euro nymphing stuff, sight lining.
Cool. How long have you fished roughly competitively?
I did that tournament was in May, and I took a break and I kind of learned the style a bit. And my very next one was in October on the Upper Nantahala. And there was like, I don't know, I think around 20, maybe 25 people in it. And I ended up winning it, so I was hooked instantly.
That's awesome. Where has some of the competition you've competed in taken you?
I've been up to New York quite a bit, Pennsylvania, Colorado, Wyoming, Idaho, Oregon, and British Columbia in the States area here. And we just got back from Italy back in September. That was my first trip. No, BC was my first trip out of the country, but still kind of stateside, I guess.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I mean, I know a lot of people that'll be listening to this know you and know how rapidly you've risen through the ranks of the competitive fly fishing world. But, to help people understand, you didn't start fishing competitively till like 2012, 2013, and in 2016 you made the U.S. national team. What do you attribute your rapid rise through the competitive angling community to?
It might sound a little weird, but having a good visualization, a good active mind, like what your flies are doing in the water, and just being creative on the water. And spending I spent a lot of hours on the water between 2013 and 2016. I was on the water probably 6 days a week doing some sort of fishing, doing casting, and I don't want to say I'm mostly self-taught because I'm not, but I think, I don't know, a lot of it was verbal from Paul and saying so-and-so does this. So I go out and I practice it, and it may not work the first time, but whenever that clicks, I'm like, that's what he was talking about. And that happened so many times with Paul. He would share something with me, and it would just take a while for it to click. And once it did, I understood. And
yeah, it's amazing. I mean, I don't think any of us get to fish as much as we like, and there's really no substitute for being on the water.
There is not.
What is your favorite memory as a competitive angler?
This past year, back in November, me and my dad, we fished the Rumble and the Rhododendron, and it is I don't know how to explain the tournament format or elimination format.
Yeah, elimination, 2-person teams.
So we made it to the championship round, and we're fishing a pretty tough beat. Eli and Alex fished in front of us. They caught 6 fish. They're really good anglers. I was like, well, they're in there, so I knew we could catch some fish at least. And it was about, let's see, you get to score 9 fish in the session. We had, I think, 6 fish at the time. And I was down in the confluence hole, and Dad was in the run above where I left him. There were just thousands of leaves coming down the river. And I had seen a big one in that run. I didn't know how big it was exactly. And so I made him kind of focus on that run there. I I went down. I looked up there. I seen him catch a fish and score it. It was a nice one, probably 17 inches or so. And I see him hooked up again, and everybody's standing around watching. There was a crowd there, probably 10 or 12 people, and it looked like he needed help. So I jumped out of the water, and I went up the bank and got up there. And I see him at it, and I hear everybody start cheering and getting loud. And he turned around. His hat, he was, I guess, from not being able to adjust his hat while he was fighting him, but it was all lopsided and hanging on the side of his head. And he pulled a fish out of 25 inches.
That's awesome.
In the last session of the tournament. And he and I ended up winning it by a pretty good amount. And that was just an awesome memory. Probably my favorite one.
What's your favorite accomplishment in competitive angling?
I guess just qualifying for the World Championship team. That's as far as you can go with it, really. Other than winning a medal. I've got a few national championship medals. Third place individual, second place team. But making the world championship team is probably the top of the line.
Well, that's awesome. And, Michael, if you could share with us kind of your preferred rig, your rod and your leader setup that you kind of use most of the time, because I know a lot of guys out there are really dying to kind of know your equipment.
Yeah. So I fish a Master Nymph rod, a 10-foot 2-weight. I've fished a lot of different rods in my time, and I feel like this one sets up for the way I fish. It's a little faster action, but still, it's a combination of fast and soft. It's weird. I don't know how they done that, but I fished that with Fluorocarbon Leader, which kind of goes back to another question y'all had on down the line there. I fish a 10-pound fluorocarbon leader, 8-pound cider. It's nothing fancy, but it works for me.
And what is it that's about the rod action and the that fits your style so well, so people can kind of understand that? So maybe if they have a style similar to yours, they might try the rod out.
Well, it's a fast action, so I feel like the rod recovers a lot faster, and making those tight little tuck casts and accuracy casts, like I don't want to miss my target. And I think that rod helps tremendously with that.
I hear that. What piece of gear do you use that might surprise people that are maybe thinking about giving this a go, or that have given this a go?
So I'm going to go with the fluorocarbon leader. And most people think that the fluorocarbon, the first thought that comes to their mind is, oh, it stinks though. It does. But you're also allowed to use the mucilin or whatever you want to call it, fly line cleaner. Just put some of that on there and it'll float most of the day. You might have to grease it back up halfway through your day, but it does the job.
What what type of mucilin do you use to do that?
Oh man, I've had it for 6 years.
Do you use the red or the green? Do you know?
It's neither. Mine's fly line cleaner.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, cool, nice.
I can't even think of the name of it. It's Tiemco fly line cleaner. It's got a bunch of foreign writing on it that I cannot read.
Love that.
That's all I can read is Tiemco fly line cleaner.
That's going to be fly fishing's most Googled phrase this week, I think.
We'll have to hustle out and buy those Google AdWords when we're done.
It's a white round container, about the same size as the mucilin.
Cool.
Well, Michael, we were talking a little bit earlier. You fish a lot. I looked at your website. You're literally on the water hundreds of days a year. And, we also talked about how, putting in your time, there's really no substitute. But, I know not everyone is lucky to live in Cherokee so close to great water and to be able to practice as much as you do. If you're a competitive angler and you can't get out as much as you'd like, what suggestions would you give folks to make the most of their practice time?
when you ask that, are you talking like while they're at home or while they're actually on the water, or both?
Really both, because, if there's stuff that you can do because you can't get to the water that'll help you up your game, I think people would love to hear that too.
So at home, I would really, really, really practice on casting. And they don't even have to be long casts. But back when I first started competing, they wanted us to have a fishing leader or a nymphing leader that could turn over like a size 14 Adams or a caddis or whatever. And I think working on casting with a nymphing leader will up your game whenever you get to the river. And when you're on the river, I mean, just work on figuring your patterns out throughout the day. I mean, I guess that's a lot of people's mishap, is knowing what to change and when to change it.
What's a common mistake you see less experienced competitive anglers make regularly?
Hook sets.
Hook sets, really? Okay.
Hook sets, yeah.
How can they get better at that?
Go fish a delayed harvest stream and tone it down just a little bit. I see a lot of people setting way too hard. That's just my personal opinion, because I don't set the hook hard.
You also use very, very light tippet that other people probably couldn't get away with.
Yeah, I fish a lot of 7X. I mean, that's probably been my go-to tippet size for 5 years, 6 years.
Well, that's really interesting, and I want to kind of shift gears. I mean, you've got a trip coming up here soon to the World Championships in Tasmania. Can you let folks know when the championships are being held and kind of how the event is set up and kind of what do you expect when you get there?
So we're leaving right after Thanksgiving, I believe. The team is to go down and get some practice in, and the tournament starts, I want to say the 4th or 5th of December. I can't really remember. And they've actually had just a few new rule mods for it that Pat Weiss shared with the team. And we're going to be doing 3 lakes and 2 river sessions, but only 1 session per day, which isn't normal. Normally it's fish 2 sessions, fish 1 session and a break in the afternoon, and then 2 sessions on the last day. So we're fishing just 1 session a day down there. They're trying to line it up for prime hatch times or something for the mayflies, which I think is pretty cool. But they also changed the lake sessions. We'll be fishing for 4 hours instead of 3.
That's pretty cool. That's definitely a different format than I think we've ever seen in the past.
Yeah, it's a little different. I don't know how I feel about the 4-hour session sitting on a little boat. I'm close to 300 pounds.
Could be a little wobbly.
How comfortable. Yeah, I don't know how comfortable it's going to be or what size boat they're going to have, but I think I'll be ready for it.
I hear that. When did you decide you ended up wanting to be a guide?
Well, I had just started fly fishing, and it was probably 4 or 5, no, a little longer than that. I caught on pretty quick on how to catch a trout with a fly rod. And Matt had messaged me and said, "Hey, do you want to volunteer for this? What is the event? They have it here every year. I don't think it's Project Healing Waters.
Okay.
It might be. It seems like it was a different one, though. I can't remember.
Okay.
But he said, "You want to volunteer as a guide?" I said, "Sure." So we went out and they caught a bunch of fish, and I was like, "Well, if you ever need help, just call me." So kind of went from there.
That's awesome.
And this was about 2013, maybe 2012. 2012 or 13, I can't remember.
And so did you start guiding for other people and then start Fly Fish Cherokee, or did you start Fly Fish Cherokee out of the box?
No, I guided for River's Edge for a couple years, and this is my third year with Fly Fish Cherokee, my own guide service.
Well, that's really cool. Can you let our listeners know where you guide?
I do probably 95% of my trips right in Cherokee. We've got the catch and release trophy section. I don't recommend it until fall, winter, and spring. It's a little tough in the summer, and you got to deal with tubers. I guess that goes about anywhere. I guide there, and above on the Raven Fork, I do a lot of trips for newer anglers, or even the competitive anglers. I take the general water there. It's pretty good. We don't hardly catch big fish on the general water, but it's more numbers. So
that's cool. How has your competitive angling experience impacted your guiding?
I mean, that's probably where 90% of my guide trips come from, is from the competitive side.
Do you end up guiding? Do you end up guiding for a lot of competitors?
I do. Competitors and kids that want to get on the youth team, and I do a lot of that. And I do that, and then I get just the people that want to learn the Euro nymph and stuff, and not necessarily compete. But I would say probably 90% of them are competitors.
Well, and I'll continue another articulate fly tradition. There's another question I ask all of my guide guests to let us to share what they think the biggest misconception people have about the life of a fly fishing guide.
I was thinking about that one for a while today, and I think the biggest misconception is that people think we like tying flies.
I know, I hate it.
I don't mind, but it's not my favorite part. My favorite thing with fly fish. I'm a pretty good tyer. I just tie really, 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 really slow.
I hear that. Where can folks find more information out about your guide service? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Instagram's quick. The website itself is pretty quick. There's actually links in the Visit Cherokee website that go straight to my website. Where else?
Well, we know you're almost Insta famous at this point, which is kind of fun. We're honored that we know you on Instagram. It's fun to see all your fishing pictures. You post a lot of really pretty photos and a lot of really big fish. That's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll drop all of your contact information and website and social media stuff into the show notes. So folks, if you'll just hop on over, either look at the show notes in the podcast of your choice or head over to our website at thearticulatefly.com, you'll be able to figure out how to catch up with Michael. Michael, I really appreciate you taking time to join us on this experiment this evening. And I wish you the best of all possible outcomes in the World Championships, and I know Tucker does too.
Yeah.
And
I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. Maybe we'll have you back, and you can talk about all the medals that you and the team won. We can do that over the holiday season.
That would be a lot of fun.
And before we leave tonight, I want to give a shout out and thank our sponsor again, the Virginia Fly Fishing and Wine Festival, a great event in January 2020 in Doswell, Virginia. Remember, you can get all the details on the events page at our website. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this special session of the Articulate Fly podcast on the beat. If you like it, please let us know. We've got plenty of stuff in the pipeline. We want to better serve the competitive fly fishing community. Just send us a message on the Articulate Fly Facebook. If you like the podcast, please subscribe in the podcatcher of your choice and give us a review in iTunes. Tight lines, Michael. Tight lines, Tucker.
Have a good one, guys.
You guys.